has been raising funds from Gulf countries. This is the big news we have got. PFI has formed district executive committees in UAE, Oman, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia to raise funds. Now, we also have found out a Chinese link. That's right. A Chinese link of PFI has also emerged during the PMLA investigation in the Hathras case. So these are the big developments that we're getting for you viewers. Now, this is a dossier that my colleague Shravan has accessed. He'll be joining us live very soon to take us through. But this is a big scoop that we have got on Republic TV, and action also being taken there by the ED. PFI has been raising funds from Gulf countries. PFI has formed district executive committees in UAE, Oman, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia to raise funds. And I would like to go across to Shravan, who's joining me live. Shravan, take us through this exclusive story which has been accessed by Republic TV.
Well, in fact, Shivagi, Republic has now accessed the full details of the investigation that has been carried out by the Enforcement Directorate against the Popular Front of India. In fact, there is a provisional attachment order that has already been issued, and the Enforcement Directorate has already submitted that before the adjudicating authority. Now, let's take you through the details, because these details are shocking. Some new links have essentially emerged. Let's start with the Chinese link. Never before has anyone spoken about the Chinese link of the Popular Front of India. And these are the details that we are picking up. One, there is a company called the Race International LLC in Oman. The person who is connected with this very company is a man by the name of KF Sharif. Now, let's just take you through some of the details that we're getting in right now. One, that this man, KA Sharif, is a PFI member. He's also a Campus Front of India's National General Secretary. He's actually been associated with this company called the Race International. And this is exactly what the Enforcement Directorate has to say, and I'm quoting. He says that he's received more than 1 crore rupees in his bank account in the guise of mask trading with China. He was an employee of the Race International LLC in Oman. This is predominantly a Chinese-controlled company that is based in Oman. The company claims to be in business involving transfer of funds between China and Oman. In fact, KA Sharif has actually visited China not once but twice, in 2019 and in 2010. It does not end there. SDPI's name also basically figures out in the provisional attachment order, and that is Kaleem Pasha of the SDPI has been involved in Bangalore riots. He has received about 5 lakh rupees from a Chinese-controlled company. And now, what's the name of this Chinese-controlled company? It's Jump Monkey Promotions India Private Limited. Now, all these allegations that have essentially been raised right now against the Popular Front of India is basically based on certain investigation that has been done by the PFI starting from 2009. Now, there are 23 bank accounts that have already been seized by the Enforcement Directorate. They have been frozen, and a total amount starting from 2009 was about 60 crore rupees. 60 crore rupees that the Popular Front of India has actually received, and these are from overseas. In fact, there is a full structure that has been uncovered by the Enforcement Director. Where exactly was the Popular Front of India getting their money from? They were getting it from Gulf countries, from Bahrain, we are being told, from UAE, Oman, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and all of this money was to basically raise funds. Remember, publicly they've said that they have been not receiving any funds from international countries. But the fact of the matter is that clearly they've been receiving this fund through the Hawala route. Now, that's the allegation that has been leveled against the Popular Front of India as far as the Enforcement Directorate's investigation go. Let's look at the other big headline that's really coming in from the provisional attachment order and the investigation papers that we've got our hands on. What is the source of funding and what was it actually being used for? This is what the Enforcement Directorate is saying. The money that is basically being received from the Gulf countries, it is actually being utilized for unlawful activities in India, and namely the anti-CAA protest. Now, in the anti-CAA protest, we are given to understand that they are clearly talking about, one, that more than 1 crore rupees was basically deposited in 15 bank accounts of the PFI and the Rehabilitation India Foundation. That was starting from 4th of December 2019 to 6th of January 2020. There were deposits in the form of cash, IMPS using mobiles. Deposit amounts generally varied between 5,000 to 49,000 rupees, and they were deliberately kept below the 50,000 in order to avoid disclosure or the identity of the depositor. Now, why exactly would there be certain deposits that would be just below 50,000? Now, that is only because once it is below 50,000, then the identity of the depositor could perhaps not be revealed. And that's the modus operandi. What was it actually being utilized for? For the anti-CAA protest. Now, there was deposits that were taking place just before the demonstrations, and there were withdrawals also taking place between that same very period. And this is what the Enforcement Directorate is saying. They have recorded the statements of PFI office bearers O.M. Abdul Salam, M. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Muhammad Parvez Ahmad, and other PFI members, and they have all admitted in the statement that has been recorded by the Enforcement Directorate that they have participated in the anti-CAA protests. O.M.A. Salam has also admitted that PFI conducted anti-CAA protests across India. And now, if the question is asked, how do you really corroborate that? The Enforcement Directorate has basically seized the mobile phones of the PFI members, and one such PFI member, the Delhi State President, Muhammad Parvez Ahmad, his mobile phone has been seized by the Enforcement Directorate. They have come across incriminating WhatsApp messages, chats that were found revealing that PFI has played an active role in mobilizing masses for the anti-CAA protests. Now, Shivagi, it does not end there. The other big, very, very shocking allegation that has been leveled by the Enforcement Directorate against the Popular Front of India, and they are saying the source of this funding, the money that they were actually receiving, they were also being utilized for funding of terror acts by PFI, quote unquote. This is what the ED says, funding of terror acts by the PFI. The man who's been responsible, they are saying there is one man by the name Anshad Badruddin, a PFI member from Kerala, who was arrested by the UP ATS in Lucknow back in 2021. From his possession, IEDs, pistols, and also cartridges, live cartridges were all seized by the UP ATS. And ED, in its investigation, says that Badruddin is not only a member of the PFI, as investigation by the Enforcement Directorate has revealed that he has received funds around 3.5 lakh rupees from the PFI during 2018 and 2021. Clearly goes on to show funds for carrying out terrorist acts. So let me just recap this for all our viewers. A man who has been arrested for terrorist activities, he has received money from the Popular Front of India, and not once, multiple times, starting from 2018 to 2021, 3.5 lakh rupees. That's the amount that they have actually received. Let's move to the other big thing. So we have already covered the anti-CAA protest. Now we are talking about the terrorist activities. These are, remember, once again, let me underline the point. These are the findings of the investigation that has been carried out by the Enforcement Directorate. The Enforcement Directorate has made a mention of this in the provisional attachment order that has already been issued, has already gone to the adjudicating authority. The Popular Front of India would also be having a copy of it. Now let's talk about how exactly the money that was being received, a well-oiled structure that is basically in place. What was it being used for? We have spoken about the anti-CAA protests. We have spoken about the terror activities. Now let's get you the other big detail that we get. Organization of physical training camps by the Popular Front of India. In fact, ED says they have seized documents from the Popular Front of Office in Calicut, which contain details of guidance and physical training camps that were conducted by the PFI in Gulf countries. So there were training camps that were organized by the PFI in Gulf countries, specifically in Abu Dhabi, in Kuwait, and in Jeddah. And they've actively propagated PFI's anti-national ideology and raised funds with an intention to carry out disruptive, subversive, and terrorist activities in India. So they have also been now accused of organizing. They're organizing what? They're organizing physical training camps, and these training camps are all with the single intention of basically propagating anti-India activities. Let's move to the other question. Now, there is a diary that has been seized by the Enforcement Directorate, and this is of one member who goes by the name M. Muhammad Ismail. He's basically taken down notes, the minutes of a meeting that took place in 2020 in December. On 3rd of December, M. Muhammad Ismail, he's spoken about the minutes of the meeting of the PFI leaders, and this is what I'm quoting from the minutes of the meeting. They're talking about a civil war-like situation in India, and this is what I'm quoting. Let me just tell you. One of the members says, discuss about ourselves. 30 years we are here. Now that the nation is not like 30 years before, nation must witness where civil war like the NRC, the CAA. In this situation, what must be our strategy and priority? Clearly, they're talking about a civil war-like situation. Joining us on this broadcast is former DGP of Uttar Pradesh, Vikram Singh. Mr. Singh, Republic TV has now accessed the entire PFI files. These are documents which are incriminating. What was largely spoken about, allegations that have now been leveled. The Enforcement Directorate has now informed the adjudicating authority when they were attaching the bank accounts of the Popular Front of India. Very serious question. Terrorist activities, funding for terrorist activities. Badruddin, who was arrested by the UP ATS, has actually received money from the Popular Front of India. We'll try and reconnect with Vikram Singh to try and understand this big link that has now emerged. These are very serious allegations. Let's understand what the Popular Front of India has to say to these allegations. Remember, they've been called here for questioning. In fact, there are arrests that have also been made by the Enforcement Directorate. And not to forget, in these details of the attachment order, it is very clear that there is a detailed investigation that has been carried out. So right from the Chinese link, we are talking about how the money was basically being utilized for the anti-CAA protests, for what has happened after Hathras, and now also how a terrorist who's been arrested by the UP ATS actually received funding from the PFI. Vikram Singh, you're joining us on this broadcast. Republic TV has now got the full PFI file, some very serious allegations. A terrorist arrested by the UP ATS actually gets money from the Popular Front of India. There's documentary evidence to basically show the timing of the money that is received by the PFI before the anti-CAA protests, and when the protests are actually taking place, withdrawals are taking place. And very intelligently, these withdrawals are actually taking place.
My compliments to you, to your channel, for the wonderful scoop that you have come out with. It will help indulging in crime that happened even before the election. That, and also the Hathras case, when everybody was laughing at the arrest made by the UP ATS and the police. Everybody said that it is a fake and a fictitious for the Trump charges. Now everything is falling into place. And the flow of cash seems to be very, very clear. It will help the government to ban which is the need of the hour. You may call it immaterial asset, and it was said that 120 crores of rupees were gathered for this anti-CAA agitation. Then the Bengaluru riots were also financed by the PFI. The money came from the... But there was no proof. Now that the proof is here, I think the time is now to ambush, corner them, and ensure that they are banned even before they can say Jack Robinson. The time is right. And so they have a... And they are going out in Rajasthan. Now it's else. Strike when the iron is hot, when you have incontrovertible evidence of the flow of cash into them from Middle East, China, and other hostile elements.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Vikram Singh, for putting this into perspective. Certainly, big question right now being asked: why shouldn't the Popular Front of India be banned, keeping in mind multiple allegations that have been leveled against them and their role that has been highlighted by multiple agencies, not just the Enforcement Directorate, but also the National Investigation Agency and the Ministry of Home Affairs, which has already received multiple reports from these very agencies about their source of funding and also their activities. In fact, more details basically emerging from the investigation that's been carried out by the Enforcement Directorate. So we were talking about the Hathras incident where there were specific members, including Siddiqui Kapan. There are several